Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hello, girls, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fitness Academy's podcast. I'm your host, Siggy, one of the WFA's educators and a women's online coach. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you are doing really well. You are feeling strong and confident and ready to dive into today's fucking awesome podcast because I have a freaking special guest with me. We actually spoke last year in August, and I have the absolute pleasure of chatting with her again. Now, for those who don't know, I am welcoming back to the to the podcast, Kayla Lee Physio. However, she's not known by that anymore. So what are you known as right now, Kayla?
What are you talking about?
It's the university.
Oh, okay, right. So yeah, I guess was the university not up back then? I thought it was.
No, we didn't chat much about it.
Is that because that's what my Zoom name says, AWPT University? That's my new name. Yeah, it's actually really funny that you said that because whenever I get on like my own personal calls for my my courses that I take, it comes up with AWPT University, and that's what I get called in the class. So it's really funny you said that. And I was actually speaking to one of my business coaches as well, one of my business mentors, and we had a podcast and a conversation about like not being like the face of your brand kind of thing anymore. So yeah, I guess AWPT University is my new identity, or I'm stepping away from like the Kayla Lee Physio identity and just becoming, I guess, more myself, whereas this university is like bigger than myself is kind of how I see it. Kind of like Women's Fitness Academy as well.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's not just about the one person, it's about building an online presence for everyone, for coaches.
Yeah, definitely. And we have now like a couple of coaches working for us, and they're experts in their field as well. So it is a community, and it is a brand and a university, and it's cool what we're building.
I love it. So for those who don't know, can you please explain to them what have you been building since last year?
So AWPT University is also a women's education platform for coaches. And so not just female coaches, but also male coaches to learn more about women's physiology, women's training, anatomy, biomechanics, all things women's health, basically. And yeah, we just have different courses that we offer depending on which kind of aspect of women's health that we're focusing on as well. So yeah, we've got a number of courses at the moment. We've got the OG, which is AWPT, and that's an 8-week course which covers all those topics that I spoke about before. Then we have like honors courses that take a deeper dive into the menstrual cycle. We have a neuroscience course that we've just released. We've got a business course. We're working on nutrition, and we've got a weightlifting course coming up as well. And the next big one is going to be pre-postnatal. So we've got a few things in the works coming up, which is super exciting, but just covering all aspects of women's health.
Oh my God, it's so freaking exciting. I was so excited to see the neuroscience one that you launched. Not because I'm a fan of the brain, but just it's something that has been lacking in the health and fitness industry. So I know, well, our listeners don't know, but I know you've been working with Michelle Bader for quite a while, and you've been diving into the whole neuroscience. How has your journey been with that side of things?
Yeah, so I started with Michelle, what are we in, May? I started about April last year with Michelle, and that was off the back end of like a really traumatic breakup. So I dived into that more from a personal perspective. So it was actually like, it is, I guess, kind of scary, like investing in your own personal development, because usually it's like, oh, if it's for my business, if it's for professional development, then fine. But doing something like for yourself is so empowering, and it's the best decision I ever made. So yeah, it was a journey that started like off the back end of that breakup, which I said before, and it has been so eye-opening. Like at university, we did study the nervous system and things like that, but more from a physiological lens, rather than as human beings. We are literally living, walking, breathing nervous systems, and everything is based around the nervous system, which often gets overlooked. So in our training, when we're talking about hormones, when we're talking about our behaviors and our emotions and like the way we think, it all comes down to the brain, to the spinal cord, to the nervous system, and it is absolutely fascinating. So yeah, I started the journey with more of a personal lens on that, and the first 6 months is really just looking at yourself, because it all starts with yourself and knowing your own nervous system, how you operate, how you think, what your emotions are like, how you respond in certain situations, is really, really interesting. And then level 2 goes into more of relating to others, so relationships with others, social engagement, all those sorts of things, and what healthy relationships look like. So that's where I'm at the moment. 3 and 4 is more taking a look at how you can help your clients in terms of their nervous system. And then level 4, which I'm going all the way, is how to work with different systems in the structure of a company as well, which is super exciting. So yeah, I asked Michelle if she I can't remember whether she asked me or I asked her. But anyway, we came up with to the conclusion that we needed to bring this to the wider audience, and working with coaches, they can make such a difference in their clients' lives by helping them with this stuff as well and understanding it. So yeah, that's a not so quick rundown of what it's been like over the last year.
I love it. What has been like a game changer for you since doing that work with her?
So I think the biggest thing, and this comes up and is a massive theme for me going through the course, is self-trust. So in that relationship, I lost a lot of myself because I was catering to someone else, and I was catering to someone else's needs and their nervous system and the way they react to certain situations. Sorry, what was that?
Been there, done that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people can relate as well. And so, yeah, like when you're in a relationship, the first place you've got to look at is yourself as well, and like how you're being too. And so there are a lot of things that intuitively myself, I already knew, but it was almost like I needed permission to be that way or do those things, to want certain things and have certain needs. So self-trust was a big theme. But learning just like different theories of like applied neuroscience, like the 3 brains, the window of tolerance, these kinds of things have really been able to, because I do have like an academic brain, like I have like an academic part of myself that I want to know how it works kind of thing. And like knowing how it works actually just makes it everything way more clear for me. So I can become really self-aware in certain situations where my activation might be higher. I might be going into like what's called hyperarousal, and another word for that is going to be like anxiety. If we're like hypoaroused, it's like a more of a depressed state, and how we can sort of stay within an optimal range to be able to like respond in a really calm way that's not like overly emotional, if that kind of makes sense. We're allowed to keep our thinking brain on so that we're not just reacting through emotion.
Yeah, so interesting. I love that. And I don't know if I can speak in relation to our listeners, but I know that at some part, a lot of us lose that self-trust, whether it's from a breakup, whether it's from, I don't know, like childhood, growing up at school, like different types of scenarios. What helped you to make that shift to start, trusting yourself?
Um, yeah, like you're totally right. Like we've been told, like growing up, we've always been told like what to do kind of thing, rather than like tuning in and becoming more introspective and looking like at yourself was like oh, you shouldn't do that or you shouldn't do this. And then it's like, well, hang on, like, is that true for me or is that true for that person? Because everybody is looking at the world through their own lens and through their own glasses. And so it's like, is that conditioning sort of rubbing off on you? And honestly, it's a work in progress. So I don't know if I'm exactly there yet. I don't know if I'll ever be there or if like it's ever, like perfect. But I think the shift was just becoming more introspective and also in a way like having confirmation through doing the things that I was changing. So for example, if there was something I was like, I should do this, but then I questioned myself, there would be something that would come up and confirm it for me that that was the right thing to do. And then through that, that's how I've continued or I've started learning how to trust myself a little bit more is like, just thinking if someone tells me something is like, is that how I want to go about it? Is that how I want to do it? Or does something else feel right for me? Like what feels safe? I think safety is a huge thing to be able to make conscious decisions. You need to have that element of safety there. So being in environments where you're surrounded by people who want the best for you, like that's a huge one. And yeah, just almost like I was looking for permission before, but now it's like you have that inside of you. Every person does. Every person has this innate wisdom that they just need to trust, and things will work out.
So interesting that we're talking about this because it's so relatable, not just because we're coaches, but as women as well. I find, we're naturally caregivers, nurturers, especially women who go into motherhood, they quite often lose themselves because they are just giving all of themselves to others and then they lose that trust within themselves of being like, oh, I can leave the home, with the babysitter and like go out or, as a coach, you wanting to, for example, bring up a new program and having those thoughts going, oh, is it going to be useful? Are people going to buy it? Like, am I just, trying to reinvent the wheel or is this actually something that people are going to get value from?
Yeah, 100%. I think the thing, like, especially with mothers, it's like, that's their identity now. They identify with I'm a mum now. And so I have to like be a mum. But being a mum is just a part of them.
Yeah.
And we all have different parts of ourselves. And this was another thing for me as well. Like I find depending what it is, like I'm quite indecisive, but only on small things and not on like really large things. But that's literally just two different parts of myself wanting different things. Like something as trivial as like, what do I want to eat? It's like such a big deal. It's like, well, like, I really want some chocolate, but, maybe that's not the best for my goals kind of thing. So they've got one part of me that's like, I really want some chocolate. And they've got this other part of me that's being like, okay, well, maybe like that's not the best choice for me right now kind of thing. So that kind of drives that indecision. But it's not that, I guess I've sort of come to realize that it's not that I'm indecisive. I just need to give myself a little bit of space to make the right decision. And so I will come to the right decision and it'll be like, do I really like become more introspective and be like, do I really want chocolate? Or is it just that, I'm stressed, I'm emotional, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, like I'll give myself that permission because I have it inside of myself to make that choice. So I'll give myself that permission to have that chocolate and I'll freaking enjoy it too. So yeah, it's super, super interesting to see like different parts of people and when they're coming into play.
Yeah, I love that. It's so good to have that understanding of, that the shift that we're making, but also, as you said, like sometimes it's okay to just be a little bit indecisive depending on what the situation is.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a bad thing. You can reframe it and be like, it means I'm flexible.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm not set in my ways, like.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I'm flexible, guys. I'm not indecisive.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. So back to the neuroscience, you were talking about before how you learned a little bit about the three brains, and then there was another.
The window of tolerance.
That, yes. Let's dive a little bit into that.
Yeah, and then the third one that I've learned as well recently is polyvagal theory. So that's super interesting as well. So the window of tolerance I relate it also to, if anybody's heard about the inverted U-shaped curve for performance, or even the bell-shaped curve for stress management.
You did a good post about this.
Yeah, because like it's a similar concept and a similar principle, but applied through three different lenses. So the window of tolerance is basically this, like, I guess, a window or like a period. Can you still hear me? Yeah, cool. It's a it can be, how should I explain it? Imagine two lines like across a page, and then you've got above the line, you've got between the two lines, and then you've got below the line. So your window of tolerance lies between those two lines. This is where you're in a state where, your nervous system is quite steady, you're feeling quite calm and in control. This is like almost like your optimal state of arousal if we look at the inverted U. So the inverted U sort of states that we have this optimal level of arousal, which is best for the performance of a specific task. Any less, we're going to underperform. Any more, we're going to underperform as well, because the activation is just either too low or too high for that specific task. And then again, like with the stress management thing, like if stress is not bad. Stress is actually really helpful for us in short bursts. So we need cortisol for things like getting up in the morning. We need the stress response if, say, we're in danger and we need to run away. So that fight, flight, freeze kind of thing. And so if we have too little stress in our lives, we're going to have low morale. We're going to feel depressed. If we have too much stress, it's going to lead to like burnout and breakdown and exhaustion and things like that. So this window of tolerance is like, that optimal state of arousal, that optimal state of stress that we have in our lives that isn't too high or too low. And so when we become outside our window or closer to the like either higher or lower edges of our window, we become either hyper aroused or hypo aroused. And, hyper arousal is going to be those things like anxiety. We're going to see the stress response. We're going to see like fight, flight, freeze. We're going to see, in that hypoarousal state, we're going to see things like numbness and depression. So yeah, it kind of like integrates with those two things really well. And so, in different circumstances and in different situations, we might be on that higher end, we might be on that lower end. And just becoming aware of that is really important. And so sometimes it's not necessarily about changing it, because our nervous system, its entire role, the reason that it exists is to keep us alive. It's to keep us safe. And so in some cases, being hyper aroused is the correct response. For example, if we were in danger and we needed to run away or to fight or something like that. So we need to have it to remain safe. But, in this day and age, there is a lot of psychological stresses and a lot of psychological stimuli, whether it be social media, work stress, COVID stress, relationship stress, all these sorts of things. in our current society, that our brainstem doesn't know the difference between real danger and perceived danger. So we might read a stressful email and that sets off a stress response in our body, but that stress response isn't necessarily like we're safe, right? We're like in our office, nothing's going to get us. So we don't need to have that response. And so using resources and resourcing to get us back into our window can be really helpful. And some of these resources might also help us widen our window of tolerance as well. So it can change. So say, for example, like you're super hungry, you're super tired, all these sorts of things that can make the window smaller. And so the smallest thing could set you off into hypoarousal or hyperarousal. But, if you've been for your morning walk and you've got your coffee and, you did your journaling and whatever that resource might be for you. Sometimes it's meditation for people. Sometimes it's exercise. Whatever help keeps you steady are the resources that you can help to, stay more in your window.
It's so cool to better understand that, because a lot of people tend to perceive stress as a bad thing, but like you said, there's always context to all of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like we need to have that stress response in like life threatening situations. We need to have those fight, flight, freeze responses, that sympathetic nervous system, telling us like we need to, either, move towards something and fight it or move away from something to keep us safe.
Yeah, so good. Hopefully our listeners are like, oh, yes, I've learned something new today.
Well, I mean, I hope I'm not going to like neuroscience nerdy kind of thing.
Oh,
I hope it makes sense.
yeah, our listeners, you can always rewind back, or if there's something that comes up and you're like, oh my God, I have no idea what the hell she's talking about, go and Google, search the word, do a little bit of research. You know what? Like, that's how I got started to know a little bit about neuroscience, and I'm sure you did, Kayla, as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So
Finding the resources.
yeah, that's the best way of understanding it. And, like doing more of those courses or just doing a little bit of self-study, understanding the levels that we need to apply to our lives. Because like you said, the stress needs to be applied with context. It's not always going to be bad, but it's not always going to be good as well.
Yeah. I think if you look up, if you just type in like images, like the image of the window of tolerance will come up. So it'll make a whole lot more sense to see it laid out in a graph rather than me just explain it, because I'm using my hands, but I don't know if this
not everyone's
going to be. No.
But you have explained it quite well, so hopefully they understood it. And then moving forward to the three brains, let's talk about the brain. I fucking love talking about the brain.
Yeah, the brain is super, super complex. So yeah, previously before I did the neuroscience course, I looked at the brain purely from like a physical standpoint. Like in some of our courses, we talk about proprioception, and that's all about the nervous system and how it senses certain things from outside the body, and then it sends those signals up to the brain. The brain interprets it, and then the correct response is sent back down to like the motor nerves to do something. The three brains theory is that we have these three brains. So we actually have three parts of the brain. So we have there's lots of parts of the brain, but the three brains is the brainstem, the limbic system, and then the prefrontal cortex. So they have like different functions, I guess. So the brainstem is basically used for our reflexes. So say you were to touch a hot burner and let's do a better example. Like say you step onto the road and there's a bus coming. Like the brainstem will sense that danger and it will get you to step back away from the curb so that you're not going to get hit by a bus. So that sends a sympathetic response back down straight away to move away to keep you safe. Now this happens really, really quickly. the thinking brain and the limbic system, which is the emotional brain. So the prefrontal cortex is the thinking brain. That's when we're really self-aware. So the prefrontal cortex is online when we're really self-aware. It's almost like the higher order brain. And then in the middle is the limbic system. So brainstem starts down the bottom. In the middle, we've got the limbic system, which is our emotional brain. And then at the top, we have the prefrontal cortex, which is our thinking brain. If we, so what happens is like information gets sent straight to, like it goes through the brainstem. And then if a reflex is required, like we don't have time to think about it. Like if that bus is coming, we don't have time to think, we just need to move. So then it sends those signals back down. Then what will happen is we'll feel like the fear and anxiety, right? So that message goes to the emotional brain. And if the emotional brain feels unsafe, then the message will go back down again to the brainstem. So we don't have that prefrontal cortex online. We don't have that thinking brain online. So we can't really think about it. You know, another example, I guess, could be if you're having an argument with your partner, then you know, you feel like you're in danger, you don't feel safe. If there's no safety there, then what will happen is the emotional brain will react. Whereas if you feel safe and you feel calm, then the message will get sent up to the thinking brain, and then you're able to respond in a way that might be better than reacting emotionally, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
So we've got these 3 tiers, but reflexes basically keep us alive, keep us safe. If the system feels safe, so the message goes up to the emotional brain. If the system feels safe, it's allowed up to the thinking brain for processing, because that takes a lot longer time. But if we don't feel safe, then we're going to be stuck in that emotional reaction, in that emotional brain. Okay, and then those signals get sent back down to the body. So for example, anxiety, you're going to see increased heart rate, maybe sweating, all these like sympathetic responses. So that's basically 3 brain theory. I hope I didn't mash that up too much either. You can type that in and find a graph as well. It'll show you.
I love that. So I don't know if like many of our listeners have a good understanding of neuroscience or the brain, but I do believe that we all need to know the basics of it. And I think that 3-way theory is a really good way for, well, anyone, not just coaches, to understand how the body works, you know, just to have a better, because again, like it doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, you know, like stepping away from a bus. We can relate it to training as well. You know, so stuff doing at the gym, or, you know, the way we perceive around nutrition, I guess. Like, you know, there's always different areas, which I think is really cool to have a good understanding of that. Are you enjoying like learning all of this?
I froth off it. Like it is, it's like, it's just another layer. It's just another tool for the toolbox. And going back to speaking about clients as well, like if you have clients, like we need to relate this back to clients, but if you have clients that are super stressed, like they're thinking about like so many different things, they're in this hyper arousal state, like anything you teach them is going to go in one ear and out the other, because they don't have the capacity to retain that information if they're stressed, right? Like all they're thinking about right now is like survival. Like it's almost like survival mode where nothing else matters. Like I just have to get through the day or the week or the month, whatever it is, this phase of my life. So I think as coaches, it's really, really important to understand that social connection is one of the most regulatory things for the nervous system. Safe social connection, I should say. Unsafe relationships, one of the most dysregulating things for the nervous system, but safe connection and social engagement is one of the most regulating things for the nervous system. So if your client comes in stressed over whatever, being there for them and being a safe place, and creating a safe space for them to open up can be super, super regulating for their nervous system. Because if they're in that hyper aroused state and sympathetic state, going and training is probably not the best thing for them right then. So you need to have some tools to help them regulate their nervous system, safe social connection, things like internal regulation, like breathing, like slowing their breathing down, can really help before getting into a session. We don't necessarily want to be in a parasympathetic state for training, but just bringing it down a little bit so that we're not going outside that window is really important.
Yeah, I love how you related that to clients, because too often clients will be like, "Oh no, I'm fine, I'm okay to train," but you realize that they're too stressed to do that.
Yeah, like sleep. They might just not have slept either. Maybe they're like 3 coffees down and they're just like buzzing, like their nervous system is buzzing from all the caffeine.
Yeah, being
Definitely, yeah.
can't lie around that. It's not okay. But I do agree regarding the safe space for them. What are some red flags in an unstable relationship? Not just a loving like partnership, but coach client.
Coach client relationship. I think if the coach is on their phone, or if the coach is not giving the attention to the client, that can be like, I guess, a red flag for that particular relationship. Like no communication. If you're an online coach, like just ghosting your clients is a red flag as well, because you might be a point of contact that connection is so important these days, especially after COVID's hit and everything's going online. In terms of the clients, if you're seeing that they are not understanding what you're saying, or they're not learning, then there could be something wrong there. So, for example, like you give them a program or a plan, or you give them a nutrition plan, they don't stick to it. It's like, well, it's probably not that they just don't want to stick to it. It's probably something else. So understanding what else is going on in their life that's causing them to not be able to stick to it. They could just not have any time, like let's take the new mum example. They're looking after everyone else's food, the baby's food, maybe her partner's food, if there's any other children, their food. And then they just neglect themselves and their own food. And so, making a more sustainable choice, or figuring out if there's a way that we can help them regulate, because like sleep is low when you've first got a new baby as well, and you're thinking of so many things. So, is there a way that we can better help and understand them, and not just be like, you're not sticking to your program, you're not sticking to what I gave you. It's like there's a reason for that, and so we need to uncover that reason and help support them with that as well. Like what lifestyle changes can we make? How can we build certain habits? Just helping them with their lifestyle and helping them. It could even be something I was just saying as an identity shift. So oftentimes, if you just give someone a behavior change, they might stick to it for a few weeks, but they might not continue with it. And that's because of the identity they have around being a certain way. So if they've always been a certain way, and you just give them like a task to do, like a changed behavior, like they've never gone to the gym in their life, and you start them on a gym program, it's like, well, they've had this identity of themselves as not being a gym person for their entire life. We need to help uncover and change almost that identity to, I'm a gym person, I go to the gym. And then it's not just a short-term behavior change that you're relying on. It's like, this is the type of person I am, which means I need to show up at the gym when I've got this this session or this program.
Yeah, it's so true. And I love the fact that you said that we just need to do it step by step and slowly, to keep that safe space for them, and making them realize, hey, like you may not think that you're ready yet to go to the gym, but slowly changing that narrative, that's when that shifts as well for the better.
Yeah, and I think for mums, like, because the identity is like, I'm a mum, I can't go to the gym. It's like that mum guilt as well. It's like, I'm just a mum, like I can't take care of other parts of my life. But you're a mum, you're potentially a businesswoman or something like that. You're potentially, a fitness woman, and you can have these different parts of yourself. We all do. Um, and I think that can also be really freeing and empowering as well. We don't have to be just one identity, just one way.
Yeah, so true. I love that. And before we finish, red flags in loving relationships.
Oh, I could go all down this. So this isn't
Let's
something that
do
I learned.
5. So we're not
Okay,
here
this
for
is
another hour.
all right. This isn't something that I learned through the course. This is something that I've learned through personal experience. So love bombing at the start of a relationship and then not following through, like, when you get into later months. Breadcrumbing, where they just give you like little pieces of, this and that. Like, they might say something nice here and something nice there, but the rest of the time it's just like almost like putting you down kind of thing. What else? Not listening, I think, is a huge one, like not listening to your needs and holding space
Yeah, that's a
for
big
you. Yeah. And thinking like, okay, gaslighting, let's go with gaslighting as well. So gaslighting is, when someone thinks that their reality is the only reality and they try to change your perception of reality as well. And the fifth one, no, I've just heard a joke, and it's like, if their name starts with J, like J's are toxic, but like that's just not a real one. Like that's just
made up one.
I've heard that one, but like I found it to be true, so we'll go with that.
Oh my God. That's it. Well, if any of our listeners know a J, then
Be careful.
stay away.
No, I'm totally joking, guys. I'm totally joking. Don't break up with your partner because their name starts with J. Disclaimer.
Yeah, disclaimer. This is just our own opinions. But yeah, I love how we finished regarding relationships as well. Like, even though we're here talking about health and fitness, your health is around your environment, your relationships, and all of those. So I'm really glad we jumped a little bit into that side of things because, yeah, again, if we don't have healthier relationships with our partners, siblings, parents, friends, whatever, that is going
Yourself.
to ourselves. Oof, yes, definitely ourselves. That toxic energy is going to leak onto a business. It's going to leak onto our clients. It's going to leak into wherever we go to. So, yeah, it's noticing those relationships and how you can better them.
That's so true, Sig. Like, yeah, your relationships make up a part of your health as well. So I work with a lot of coaches, and I've seen some coaches in toxic relationships, and it kills their business is suffering because of it. Their self-worth is suffering because of this. Their self-trust is suffering because of it. And yeah, it is really a huge part of being human. Like, you need to have, like, it's not just a luxury, it's a need. It's an innate human need that we've always needed from birth, to have safe human relationships. So if you can be that for like your clients, but especially yourself, then you're on the right track.
Holding that safe space for yourself is something that I've had to learn really hard because, again, like, taking it back to us being caregivers and nurturing for other people, if you're not giving that love to yourself, you're literally pouring from an empty cup. So by doing that work, you are realizing how much you need to give yourself first before you give other people that energy.
Yeah, 100%.
I love that. I love how we started talking about the AWPT University, the brain, coach client. Now we're like deep shit into relationships and self-worth.
it's all intertwined. Like it seriously is.
It really is. It really
And
is.
you just uncover different layers.
I love it. And you know what? That's how we evolve. We like literally cover. What's that saying? Oh my God, peeling the onion. Like literally,
Onion.
yeah, layer by layer. Yeah,
Yeah.
so true. What's on for the rest of? I was like, we're almost like halfway through 2022. So, do we have
Crazy.
big plans coming up in the next few months or towards the end of 2022? What's happening in the world of?
I mean, yeah, like we have the neuroscience course running at the moment, the first one. Michelle and I, the response has been amazing. So Michelle and I have already spoken, and we're like, we need to do round two,
Yes.
whether that looks the same, like a short course, or whether that's something a bit longer and a bit more in depth. Um, it's my birthday next week. Big 31. And yeah, so me and my partner headed to London in June. So we are going to be probably doing a workshop or a seminar over there, as we spoke about off air. Just continuing to build out the university basically. We do have some new courses coming out, working on some new courses behind the scenes as well, which is like just finding the right people to have on board for that. And yeah, exciting times ahead.
So exciting. I love the fact that you're heading overseas. Like it's been a while since we've all been out of Australia. So being able to tiptoe into London, especially, which is absolutely beautiful, it'll be so much fun.
Yeah, it's fun. That's what I want. I want fun because the last year, I guess, we've been here in Australia, which is like amazing. Like it's beautiful. It's been a really good place to be. But before COVID happened, like that's what I was doing. I was traveling and teaching. And so, yeah, getting back into that, I'm really looking forward to.
Yes, so exciting. I love it. Before we go, where can our listeners find you?
So I mean, Instagram's always the easy one. So at Kayla Lee Physio is my personal page, and then at AWPT_University is my business page. Or just our website, awptuniversity.com. Those are probably the best ones. I don't know if anyone uses Facebook anymore. I'm also on Facebook, but yeah.
I don't anyway.
Yeah, just for groups, really.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Good old groups. That's what Facebook is good for right now.
Yeah, 100%.
Love it. So good. Well, girls, and males, if we have any male listeners, I'm not sure. But if we do have male listeners, let us know. Like, what else do you want to listen or learn more about from a female perspective? Like, that would be fucking cool to get some feedback from you guys. But anyway, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please make sure that you screenshot it, tag us at the Women's Fitness Academy, tag myself, tag Kayla, and then until next time, stick to those safe relationships. And if you see those red flags, question them. If you can resolve it, awesome. If not, maybe it's time to walk away.